Good evening. I'm Sue Hodgen, the chair of the planning board. It is 6 o'clock and I'm going to call us to order for our regular meeting, April 2024, for Southport's Planning Board. We ask that everyone silence or turn off your cell phones, please. Let's start by removing any hats, and those who can and will, please stand while Board Member Scott Jones offers our invocation, and we'll follow with our allegiance to our flag and country.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together tonight. Be with us as we conduct this business of the city. Help us to make fair judgments for everybody involved. Be with us as we travel home tonight. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Agenda item D is the approval of our March 27 minutes. These were issued to our members in advance, and they are on pages 2 through 6 of your packet. Are there any changes or corrections? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve those minutes as prepared?
So moved. Second.
Thank you so much, Will and Dick. Motion is on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item E is the approval of our agenda for this evening. This was also issued to members in advance. Are there any additions or corrections? Do I hear a motion to approve? Thank you, Will. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. There is motion on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item F is public comment. Do I hear a motion that we move into public comment?
So moved.
Will, thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brad. Motion is on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes for that as well. Madam Deputy Clerk, is there anyone signed up to speak this evening?
There is no one signed up.
Thank you, ma'am. Anything to read that has been emailed to us?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Anyone here who did not sign up but wishes to address the board? In that case, do I hear a motion that we end public comment?
So moved.
Thank you, Will, and a second. Thank you, Scott. Motion on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I do have a couple comments that I want to put in at this point. I believe there to be what I hope was merely confusion about the elections that we held last month for chair and vice chair. Current city ordinance section 13-26F states that officer nominations can be held, quote, at midterm vacancy. Our UDO section 2.3B1 also speaks to leadership terms being 1 year, and since we'd not had officer elections since the latest county reappointment of member ETJ alternate Chris Jones, we were very simply doing admin housekeeping and catch up. No leadership changed by that election, and we moved on. In the future, our elections will be based on a recent ordinance update. And as we follow up to the action taken by the Board of Aldermen at last week's meeting concerning the zoning change request on the approximate 8-acre parcel off Robert Ruark, I want to reiterate the processes of this board. Alongside the city's planning staff, we do background work. We research, hold submissions against the city's guiding documents, the CAMA Land Use Plan, the UDO, and the application checklist to see how they hold up, if they meet the requirements of those documents. That's what we report to the aldermen and on what we base our recommendations. From there, the Board of Aldermen takes the info we give them, does its own research, holds public hearings, and if they come up with a decision different from the Planning Board recommendation, it's a result of all the information. When their decision is different than our recommendation, and obviously that can happen, that's cause to be grateful that there's another layer of eyes beyond ours involved. Overall, I wanted to take the opportunity to state that this board's volunteer members, defined by the UDO, understand our responsibility to adhere to our governing documents, and we follow the process. And lastly, nowhere in those governing documents do they dictate, do they care what financial holdings a member has or how they pay for where they live. My goodness. It's hard not to take it personally when public comment is directed at us so very personally. Just shaking my head, I'm not going to give that any additional oxygen. I just want to say again, as we move on, thank you to every one of you for your unselfish, uncompensated service to the city of Southport. We will move to old business, item G. Item G1 is 101 East Moore Street, major site plan, Bullfrog Corner, residential units. This begins on page 8 of your packets, folks. Mo, staff report, please. Ma'am.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Board. This evening, we have brought back a major site plan request that was brought to you first in September of 2022. It was submitted an application for a major site plan for a mixed-use project for a property at 101 East Moore Street, also known as Bullfrog Corner, is the existing commercial use there. The property is within the Central Business District. So the project will keep the existing retail and office uses at the street level and will include 4 residential units above the existing building, and that building will remain with the new structure engineered to be constructed over the building. At your September meeting, a committee was formed to review the application, and at that committee meeting, an updated plan was requested to show that there were no property line encroachments. There were some questions about if there were encroachments in the right-of-way at couple of the renderings that were provided. I wanted to look at the handicap accessibility for the parking and the circulation with the parking lot itself. So there was some questions about how the parking was going to work. A new plan was submitted in November to staff that still did not meet the circulation or the maneuverability for the parking lot without considering backing out into the right-of-way, which is not allowed within the UDO. So the applicant went to an engineer and provided a maneuverability plan that was prepared, and it showed a 10 to 30 point turn for most of the cars trying to get out of the parking lot. Yes, it was doable, but was it really practical? So our city engineer said that it was not acceptable to get cars out. So the applicant came forward and asked for a variance from the Board of Adjustments to allow the proper number of parking spaces, maneuverability, handicap accessibility, and egress and ingress into the building without any problems with the cars parked in front of it. So the variance was applied for, and it was approved and granted to allow the vehicles to have a frontward parking in and then backing out into House Street. So from that was in January of 2023 that this has all come. So the staff has been working and in communication with the applicant this whole time. There was an updated plan that was submitted to show the updated parking with with 5 parking spaces. It was found that the 5-foot setback for parking lots was not achieved in that first submittal. So the applicant has provided a new submittal that I have placed at your chairs that did have to take one of the parking spaces out of the parking lot, but does meet the 5-foot, and it does still meet the minimum requirement for parking for the units that are proposed. So that is just a very brief overview of what's happening. The committee requested a rendering, and the applicant has provided this to show kind of the scale and how it would look. Again, this is just preliminary. It may not exactly look like this, but this is what they have provided. There was a committee, like I said, so if the board so wishes, I would, entertain that this could go back to committee, or you could open it for discussion, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, let me ask you first, what was in our packets? This is new and updated, so this is number 4 in the series?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So the ledger size site plan that was at your chair this evening was the updated one that has the setback requirements for the parking lot.
Okay. So are there any questions for Mo at this point? And I see Mr. Lang is here. Would you like to make any statements, Mr. Lang? Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Mo or Mr. Lang at this point? Okay. Then with there being so much previous information received and now getting updated information just before our meeting, I think our best course is to reappoint a committee for the submission, and I'd like to see Fred Fiss, Chris Jones, and myself serving on that committee. So I'm going to ask that we table further discussion of this submission until that committee can get together and return to this board with its report and recommendation. Mo, if you can get some proposals out for meeting dates for that committee, that would be great.
Yes, I will take care of that.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Moving along to item G2. It's our text amendment, section 3.9, setback exceptions and encroachments. This is on page 38, folks, of your packets. Mo, if you'd take us on through that as well, please, ma'am.
Yes, and thank you. This is brought back again from your last meeting. This is again is an applicant requested text amendment to consider changes to allowable encroachments to the setbacks. So this would allow HVAC generators and similar setback equipment or similar equipments within the setback. There was a committee that reviewed the language and brought forward to your last meeting. So the existing language allows a encroachment of 30 inches into existing setbacks. And the new Planning Board Review Committee brought it to you last month that will make it very similar across the board, and it would be no more than 50% of the required setback. So regardless of what zone you're in or what zoning you are in, it would be 50% of the setback. And I spoke with the chief, Charles Drew, and he said that he agrees that this text is a good compromise and has no concerns with access with this.
Is there anyone that's got any questions on this?
So essentially, for our non-conforming lots, with the 4-foot setback, there will not be able to be any equipment in the side yard unless it's like a mini split, right?
They would have 2 feet to work with. But so, yes, I mean, yes, that would be a mini split, would be one of the few things that would fit, yes.
Anyone else? And we appreciate the chief looking through this and giving us the high sign for as far as that usage for our emergency responders. If there are no other questions then, do I hear a motion to approve this drafted text amendment for 3.9.B.5 to send back to the Board of Aldermen for their reconsideration?
So moved.
Thank you, Will. And a second? Thank you, Fred. Motion is on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. I'll need a member to please read into the record the statement of plan consistency. It's on page 47 of your packets. Whoops, no it's not. 37. I'm so sorry. Thank you, folks. Okay, thank you, Will.
Okay. What was that? Oh, that's outside. All right. The City of Southport Planning Board hereby recommends adoption of the proposed zoning text amendment to the Board of Aldermen and finds that it is consistent with the city's 2015 Camelcourt Land Use Plan originally adopted November 13th, 2014, and subsequently amended by the Southport Board of Aldermen. More specifically, the proposed amendment is consistent with Policy 2.4. Southport will permit residential development to occur in response to market needs provided by the following criteria are met. Due respect is offered to all aspects of the environment, and 2, concurrent planning for improvements to community facilities, infrastructure, and services provided.
All right, thank you so much. Now we'll move to item G3, the text amendment on section 3.19 signs. And that begins on page 47 of your packets. Now I get to say 47, thank you. Mo, your updated report, please, and review of the changes that we brought to last month's meeting.
Yes, thank you. So this is a request from the planning board to have a full review of the signed ordinance. Staff had presented updates for discussion at your March meeting, and there were a couple corrections and updates and new additions that were requested at that meeting. Specifically, those were related to neon signage and some kind of fleshing out the mural section. So if you will look on page, 56 of 59, it talks about the neon, argon, or other gas tube lighting or signage shall be prohibited on external walls or placed in the interior window. Is that the update so that it would no neon will be on the external walls or signs or placed within the windows itself. Then we updated the mural section, which is I, to include some different changes in the types of paint that would be allowed. So they would need to be of high quality, weatherproof, and should not be reflective, neon, or fluorescent. And I have added on your chair, Mr. Laughlin had also looked at the mural section and added a few things, so I didn't know if you want, we can go through those as well to look at the differences. So his considerations that you have in front of you from the April 16th email I received. So a lot of it is very similar. He rearranged a few things. It still has the same thought process and thinking. Did add a new color, murals number 5. So instead of 8 bullet points, there are now 5. That will consolidate some of these other ones. So I didn't know if we can go through them, however you would like. But the changes that were most significant would be the materials. He added that murals must be maintained at all times in a state of good repair, and it would be the responsibility of the owner to ensure that the mural is maintained and does not suffer from extensive discoloration. The materials. The paint used to paint the mural shall not be reflective, neon, or fluorescent. The paint shall be of high quality and weatherproof. Colors. The overall color scheme must be selected to be harmonious with the area and blend with the historical colors of the community. Murals are to be visual aesthetics of a historic district. Theme. The theme of a mural should promote the greater community, including historic and regional factors, and be compatible in design with the historical character of Southport. So that was what was really changed. And it took, as I said, consolidated some of the ones that are existing and then added the new color and theme section. So we can discuss those. One other section that I believe would be prudent for us to take a look at would be section 319C18, which is page 50 of 59, and that's political signs. There was a lot of discussion at the last election season about that, so I wanted to make sure that that was looked at if we wanted to change anything about the number of signs on private property. And we can have a discussion if you want to take this back to the sign committee, or if you give me direction, I can bring back more. If you want to make a decision now, I'm happy to help and answer any questions.
Kevin, since we've got you on by phone, and I know that you may have to leave us here for a meeting in just a minute, was there anything additional from you regarding the murals, that the information that you sent in, that you want to clarify or add to for everyone?
No, after the last meeting, I think Chris had some excellent points about the brevity of color and maybe some of the language in the first draft concerning murals. And so I went back and reviewed a number of ordinances from a number of historic towns and just tried to, in a sense, cut and paste and make more simplistic, because there's always going to be subjectivity. And hopefully we'll have a baseline when any business or person wants to use murals, and then as time goes on, we can adapt. But like any legislation, there's never one that hasn't been amended over time. So I think this is a great starting point, and of course, seek anyone else's input, because there's a lot of people on this board that have a lot more knowledge than I do, and I would appreciate any input they have.
Okay, while we've still got Kevin before he may have to leave us, is there anyone that has any comments about the mural language or any of that information? We want to discuss that, since that's something that he submitted here. And Mo, I'm sorry to get us out of order, but since he may have to depart, I wanted to be sure that we covered that. Anything else regarding the murals? No, that's good. Okay, then Mo, I do want to back up to page 50, and Kevin, you just tell me if you have to go. On page 50 about the political signs, should we, and I want to get everybody's input on this, should we have that first line say one sign per candidate shall be permitted per lot? Because we can have multiple offices that are up for election at any given season, and we don't want to be seen as restricting anybody's right to have signs in their yard for multiple offices.
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
So mathematically, it would seem you could have 4 signs. Roughly a sign is 1 foot by 2 feet. So if we've got 8 square feet, you can have 4 signs if somebody wanted to. I would think 1 is kind of limiting, restricting somebody's rights to express their opinion. So does that make sense? I don't see a problem with having 4 signs if somebody's moved to, but if it doesn't exceed 8 square feet, would you say that this typical signs are 1 foot by 2 foot? Something like that?
Yes, but I don't believe that this is saying that you only get 8 square feet per the signs allowable. I believe it's exceeding square feet per display space. So you can have one sign up to 8 square feet. So you could have a 4 by 2 sign. Then with that would have the 2 faces per sign. So they're saying you can have one up to this 8 square feet with 2 sides, is how that reads.
Yeah, I understand that, but if I had 4
Right, I
1
understand.
by 2s, that would still meet the same parameters, so 8 square feet seems like plenty. If somebody wants to put a 2 by 4 sign versus smaller signs, but do we draw the line somewhere? I would think so.
I would, on their personal property, as long as it's not blocking the, long as it's not blocking the view, as long as it's not impeding the right of way. Of course, I mean, we're not talking about billboards or anything, but if they want to have more than one sign for a candidate, maybe they're on a corner lot, or something, that they should be allowed, we should definitely not impede the right to express themselves on their, on whatever they have. And it could be, other signs as well. Maybe, it could be a candidate with stated issues, a candidate just as a general sign. But if it's not impeding movement, then yeah, I have no problem with what they want to put on their personal property for the purpose of expressing themselves during a campaign. Some do it a little more than others, but most people generally just stick to 1 or 2 signs anyway. But multiple candidates, if they support 10 candidates, they ought to be able to say, I support these 10 candidates. So,
Would it be feasible to just stop that sentence after 1 sign per candidate shall be permitted per lot, leave the square footage off completely, and then continue with the information that's here about the DOT right-of-way, so that would cover any traffic occlusions, that kind of thing, so that we are saying, given some direction for 1 per candidate. Is that reasonable to everyone? Sure. Yes? Okay. Does that make sense, Mo? Got that change?
Yeah, can I just read it back so I make sure
Yes,
we have
ma'am.
it? On private property, 1 candidate sign shall be permitted per lot, period. No.
1 sign per candidate
One sign
shall be
per.
permitted per lot, right? Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
And if it ever gets crazy, well, we can always revisit this, right?
Absolutely. Isn't it good we have the ability to do that? Thank goodness. Let's go to let's talk neon, can we? Kevin, you still there?
Yes, I
Okay.
apologize on the GPS. I was heading for my sister's
Uh,
hospital
that-
position, so I
That,
apologize.
that's okay. I'm glad that you're on the right route, so to speak. Okay, so let's talk neon if we can, because this was a conversation, I believe, at our last meeting, and there's been information put on there, and this is, again, it starts on page 55, right, Mo?
That's the
Well,
illumination. Are we
illumination,
speaking of
yes.
illumination? But on 56 is the
Is the
specific
neon.
neon clause, yes.
Okay.
But we can speak about anything on that, obviously.
So my question is, how, there are LEDs that look like neon now. Should we define, should this include other gas tube lighting or lighting that has the appearance of neon? And that may not be the right wording. I'm just saying to address the LEDs that appear, that have the appearance of neon. Did you have anything written that would help that, or want to comment to that?
So I did a little research, and you can buy LED open signs or other signs that look just like neon, unless they're probably a little more intense in intensity and color and brightness. But so I have a couple other thoughts other than that. So after we decided to take neon and argon out, that was sort of to prevent situations to prevent signage on steroids. Like there's some examples in town that one might cite that's the kind of thing that might not be conducive to the business overlay look that we're looking for. So I went up and down Howe Street, and the retail shops, typical retail shops, have an open sign, and they're typically neon. I looked at the sizes that are readily available to purchase, and they were either 7 inches by 18 inches or 13 inches by 32 inches. I think there's going to be a lot of kickback if we say no more neon signs, because what I saw was probably 40 or 50% of retail businesses have open signs. And, you know, some businesses keep random hours. Some businesses have real consistent hours, but that little sign lets people know. I think in the historic area, we may say we don't want that at all, but up and down the business district, it seems like it's a normal way of doing business, and to eliminate that option totally and just grandfather it in, that doesn't quite seem fair to me. And I know some might say, well, you can go on the internet and look at the hours that Fred's shop is open. Well, not everybody looks at the internet. And then if they're looking at the internet while they're riding down the road, we don't want that either. So I would like to hear what other thoughts people may have regarding that. It would seem like eliminating neon in general would be a good thing for the visuals in this town, but as an exception for having an open sign. And then letting the historic district, the commission, dictate that part for the signs for that area. Any thoughts?
I've, on my business, I have one of the small open signs that has that, and it's a tubular. It says open, but it's small. It's inside of the glass. It doesn't flash. That's the other thing. You don't need it to flash. You don't need, borders all around it that are pulsating or anything of that nature. Just a simple open sign lets people know that we're there, and they're all programmable. So I mean, it's just this one isn't. It's just a very basic very basic sign. But I can understand what you're looking at, when you've got a sign. Now mine is roughly this big around. But when you've got one of these large ones and it's got a border around it and it's flashing, that can be distracting at certain times to some drivers, especially if like in the historic district. In the central business district, you're going to be right up on the street a lot of times. So a person, that glass, and you've got your sidewalk, is going to be right up there. And if it's flashing, believe me, there's a lot of people around here that some of them have a little night blindness or something like that. It could distract them enough. So I can see where we would need to reduce or eliminate something like that. I would think, but in the business district where we're set back further, it's not really a distraction. But a flashing sign, I wouldn't see that. But just a generally lit sign that's inside of a window, I think that would be acceptable to have.
Yeah, I think it's more of an aesthetic consideration of what we want this town to look like. And if you give somebody if it's not defined, somebody's going to go whole hog. And there's a great example in town, if you go look for it, where that has happened. And I think even the ABC store has an open sign, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Now they know their hours for that.
So I think if we were to allow open signs, I can understand that being an essential way of doing business. I will say that my wife has one in her shop, and I'm not doing this because of her. It sort of made me look at the other businesses, the way they advertise if they're open. Not everybody has one, but it's kind of the norm where they do. I think Will has a good point where if it's flashing or doing anything light show, that's overboard. So if we were to allow neon or LED open signs, we could stipulate a size. Like I said, I did a cursory check, and the typical ones are rectangle, most of them. Yours is oval, but they were either 7 inches by 18 inches or 13 inches tall by 32 inches, and that seems large right there, but just a thought.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, great insight and thoughts by both Will and Fred. I'm a little more conservative of trying to have a uniform platform throughout the city of no neon lights. Now, I can understand the usage of neon lights years and years ago, before there was the alternative social media, Facebook, Instagram. And if you look at the history of advertising, when there was COVID, that was the biggest tool that was businesses were told to use, because it's now a more modern society. Everyone has a cell phone. People don't just look while they're driving. A lot of people want to figure out what's open. They Google and they figure it out. Is the particular restaurant open? You know, what are the hours of the bank? And if you think about it, there's a lot of important businesses, and every business is important, but you look at banks, dental office, law firms, there's a lot of businesses that don't have open signs that people check the hours. And I think we're cutting the public short as to their ingenuity in determining when businesses are open or not open, that I don't think it would be determinative of an open sign, of a neon sign. I think years and years ago, that was the only tool. But as we have become more modern and electronic, I think there's other tools, and it helps promote the overall theme of what the city's trying to do. And, you know, when you look online, there's some great comments by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation when they were talking about the great revolution in heritage and conservation, and that you have to be adaptive, and that you have to embrace creative new tools for preservation, and that the historic downtown, of course, Chumpy, but even as the areas that bleed out into the more commercial areas, it's still a representation of the impression of people as they come into town of what kind of town is this, because that will be, in many instances, their first observations. And if they see businesses that they can have a number of different little wooden signs that say open, but I think they can have them posted on a door, but I think lights on, most businesses have lights on when they're there. And I think we're shortchanging the public to think that open for business is an absolute necessity. Thank you.
Thank you. What, are there other comments?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I agree with Fred. A small open sign is not obtrusive. And you talk about historic things in the city. Historically, that's what people have used since electricity, and they've been designed as a small open sign like that. So, you know, I don't see a problem with those. As a matter of fact, they're kind of neat as a, you know, thing from years past to see.
Thank you, Scott. Anyone else? How shall we, oh, go ahead, Will, I'm sorry.
Well, one thing I was going to suggest is that we, if we do allow them to go forward, that we set a size limit on those signs. Yeah. That would be that. If we're going to allow it, we need to either a maximum size limit on it, because otherwise, like you said, there are some places that have them, and the whole window is the sign, and that could be reduced down to a simpler form.
So then, rather than go through the motion trying to get this text down, do I hear then a motion to continue discussions of the signs? We'll send that back to committee hopefully once more and get this worked out and maybe bring that back to next month's meeting. Do I hear a motion to continue that? So moved. Thank you, Will. And a second? Thank you, Jack. Do we have a motion on the floor? Is there any final discussion?
Comment, please.
Yes, sir.
Very simple. On the political signs, over here it says no, not exceeding 8 square feet. Over here on the next page, no sign shall be larger than 864 square inches. Those two don't jive. Am I reading that wrong? Because a 2x4 sign is, again, I did this math roughly in my head, but it's 596 square feet. So
So maybe that's a typo, Mo. Can we just look back at that? Give her a page number, Roy,
Yeah,
where
please,
you are.
yes, let me. 50 of. Okay, so we have the political sign, correct?
yes, ma'am. Down here under 18,
Yes, sir.
not exceeding 8 square feet. And over here, the next page, within the following, it says no sign shall be larger than 864. Please double check that, because I had to do this in my head. But I came up with 596 square inches versus 864 square inches. So one of those, I could
Okay.
be wrong.
All right, I'll check that.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah, 864 inches is 6 square feet. So they don't match.
I'm not sure where 864 inches came from. That just, I don't have
That's
a clue.
okay.
It's just always been there.
And while we're have an additional discussion on this. I did not bring up while we're talking about murals, should we have, and we can do this back in the committee, but just for everyone's point of consideration, should we have any mural that's proposed go through the historic district, or for the historic district, get that COA to be put out, that to get that included in that part of the text, so that we're including the Historic Preservation Commission in with that to make sure it's compliant with them. Any other discussion on that? Then we do have a motion on the floor. Then all in favor? For continuance, all opposed? Motion passes. Thank you so much. It was a good discussion. Now, before we move away from the text amendments, I want to mention that the aldermen have been submitting their suggested UDO revisions to the interim city manager. The aldermen discussed this at their April 8th special board workshop. If you weren't in attendance or want to go back and review that tape, we appreciate their involvement and comments regarding areas that they'd like to see reviewed. There's also been some conversation in the past and recently as well about delaying certain changes until the revision of the comp plan is complete. Realistically, we know that the plan update most likely could easily take a year plus. We also know from our own work that the UDO is a living, static document that needs continual work and revisions as recognition of issues and needs arise. For me, personally, I'm optimistic that when we have our new Director of Development Services, and Mo is no longer a planning staff of one, we'll be able to prioritize and work on currently identified revisions and those that the aldermen have identified. Okay, moving on to new business now. Yes, sir.
Mo, do you have any update on our discussion about the map amendment possibility?
Yes, sir. I didn't add that to the packet. I didn't have anything. I have sent letters to all of the property owners and have not heard anything back, so I wanted to wait until we had any input before I brought anything back forward to you. Okay.
Thank you, Fred. So now for item H, new business. Does anyone have any items of new business? Item I is other business. And we have, it's the 30th, right, Mo? We'll remind everyone of the meeting on the 30th for the comp plan.
Yes, so we will be holding a visioning workshop on April 30th here at the Community Center from 6 to 8 p.m. It's a drop-in, free-flowing meeting to get ideas. There will be different tables, different people to speak with to get your ideas. So please bring your ideas. What do you like, what you don't like, what you'd like to see in the future. So we hope that we have a great turnout, and we're looking forward to that. It is 6 to 8, Tuesday, April 30th, at the Community Center.
And then I want to remind everyone of the Green Growth Toolbox Workshop that's being held Thursday, April 25th, beginning at 9:30 at the Pender County Library. We talked about this last month. I'm going. I don't know if anyone else wants to go. If you can just let me know, we might be able to. We'll see about coordinating rides, but in any case, that is on Thursday, April 25th, beginning at 9:30 at the Pender County Library. I will also note for everyone, there's been a recent news item and a meeting that I was in yesterday confirmed that Brunswick County is changing its policies to get more details, site plans, etc., on development submissions. and they are moving ahead with tree protection ordinances. And I'll say again, I've done this before, I'm proud that Southport has already put those provisions in place for our city. Anyone else have anything for other business? Any announcements? All right, folks, item K is your member information. It's always in the back of your packets, 58 to 59 on this month's packet. With no other business, then, can I get a motion, please, that we adjourn? So moved. Thank you, Will, and a second? Second. Thank you, Dick. Motion is on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned at 6:51.